A.C. Bhakhtivedanta Swami Prabhupada had a series of talks at festivals, and yeah, it doesn't let me do the recommendation to take the video from that side. But The Nectar of Devotion is A.C. Bhakhtivedanta Swami Prabhupada's book, which I'll be sharing something out because it's mentioned in this series. But from those festival talks, from the collective thing, we got, is it true that we realize God, is it true that far more realize God is outermost or innermost than how God is between? Worship the positive and negative divine qualities. A devotee does not tolerate the blasphemy of other faiths. And there's a huge difference between just not believing the same and actually blasphemy. There is no reason for any to become a god. I mean, if there's a God that's omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, what reason is there for another? Of course, certain people will treat themselves as gods. A servant of God is not an ordinary or an instant thing. Now, you can start the path, but you're not fully. Technology doesn't always advance society. And we definitely see that nowadays in terms of behavior and intelligence and stuff like this. Humanity's going way down. Prabhupada kind of didn't know about this, but spiritual travel to any planet is possible. And, of course, psychic travel is more possible than that. Well, actually, psychic travel is less possible, but more achievable. Easy Travel to Other Planets is a book that the International Society of Krishna Consciousness puts forward. And did I read that book? I think I read that book. I don't have it. But, you know, it talks about spiritual travel. Not just... But another question for any who will hear this. What is holding you back from a fully spiritual life? Trust in God and who you accept as a spiritual master. Spiritual teaching does not have to be secret. You know, because in some groups, like one particular one that I've researched, that I have 45 member response programs and a handful or so, or other ones that I've written, that, you know, there's supposed to be this secret teaching rather than, oh, here's something available for everybody to follow in their own way or whatever. Some will favor some divine qualities or names or whatever over others, and that's perfectly okay. Innovation should regard the transmission and traditional. Now, you don't have to follow the conservative tradition, but honestly, when I read commentaries on things, I definitely find out that, you know, this is supported. I may not agree with everything that they say, but how did I not realize this? I mean, the way of the believers is one particular scriptural phrase that somebody didn't realize, that aside from the direct revelation, the inspired teachings, that a third source of things is what the believers agree upon. That he didn't realize this about democracy. you know, until, well, actually, he realized it, but other people had said it. Maybe if it had been pointed out that this verse says this. It is important to distinguish between God, divine qualities, angels, and other beings. Richard Webster's book on angels is a prime example of that sort of thing, because we see how, you know, this is a god, this is a demon, this is an angel. It's all in the book listed under angels. Angel is a very confusing word. Angel could be a nickname for a prostitute for some people. The different classes of men and different devotees have different, well, they have a different, a lot of things. Different duties and all that. Different results. Yeah, results. That's probably what I was thinking. Now, this was like 29 hours or something, this section, so I'm just giving a brief rundown of all this. Do you agree to the 24 types of sinful activity mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion? Well, we'll get to that, my opinion and your opinion, at the end of the video. God is the original spiritual master, and connecting to the revelation and inspiration are how to be a spiritual master. And of course, that is readily apparent. How can we, well, I mean, you can be spiritual master towards a lot of things. I bring up my 5 prophet theory. You got the exemplar prophets, the messenger prophets, you know, which can be one and the same, but one can be either one. I mean, some were one and some were the other, and a lot of them were both. You have the type of prophet that, in the middle, that has the confirmatory experience during the sacred months, the month of observance, the holidays, the sacred places, all sorts of things. People have spiritual experiences that confirm things to a way that's just goes beyond the physical. It doesn't deny the physical or the mental, but it goes beyond that. And honestly, I wouldn't be on the path I was on if I didn't have experience where I realized that I am a soul. Perception and reality are not always the same. Divine providing and the process of creations will not be the same. True scripture confirms each other. Now, if there's a new law for this time, it's like if you went number 2, and according to the Bible, you had to cover it with dirt. You couldn't wear mixed fabric. I mean, I'm wearing mixed fabric. I don't know how how you would live. And some things were in terms of the local material culture and stuff like this. So, anyways, so some rules are eternal and universal, and other are timed in very specific places. And try to develop an understanding beyond your conditioning. We all have conditioning. Let's not, and not all of that's good. Some of it's neutral. Probably most of it's neutral. It's like if you develop a liking for something, it's not really good or bad. That's perfectly fine. Religion comes from God as a system instead of a human invention. Human devised religions are, you know, a deviation from religion, because if religion is the relationship with God and the created, if it's that regulating principle. So there's a lot of misunderstanding, particularly since people use words like that as a hate term. The best birth control is to not have sex until you seem able to bring about spiritual liberation in one's child through exalted personalities, through something. Oh, throughout, maybe, yeah. I mean, that's not to say, well, I can't, so... No, that's what you should want for your child. Not, fine, let your child be a doctor, let them be a politician, whatever, but what you should want for them is spiritual liberation. And that's the whole problem, is that our leaders, our secular leaders, are living out their values. Let's not pretend to this separation of church and say, oh, they're not doing their values. So when we when we endow our children and those in our influence with certain values, then that manifests as such. Exalted personalities are sheltered by God. Mahatmas, Mahantas, I mean true ones, there is a certain sheltering. That does not mean they do not go through hardship, but in a different sense. And real announcement is through learning, through faith and devotion. Oh, it's not so much through learning as it is through faith and devotion. Again, fruitiveness, devotion, experience are perfectly fine things to go after, but having the right faith and devotion is key. What is it? My book of names up there has a saying that says something along the line, and this is not of the Vedanta tradition, but it says something along the lines of an hour of meditation is worth a year of mindless devotion. God is known by everything in the material world, both in the inner sense, the book of ourselves and the book of nature. And there's an example of one of the, I don't know, it kind of mixes together. He brings up the story of how, as a youth, learning, one of the characters that they worship as Krishna, now he doesn't make this point, but there's a handful, there's 4 historical characters that got put into the Krishna story, just like there's 4 historical characters that go into the Jesus story. But he opened his mouth, and the guru saw in the mouth the whole material universe. Because so. But you should thus see, we're realizing the presence of God through what is here, and we are in debt to that which is worshipped other than God, that's less than God. That doesn't mean that it should be worshipped, that we worship the angels and the sun and all this other stuff. It's just that these are the means, and even though God is the provider, Bhagavan, is, the personality of God, is known through this material world. The chiefs of political efforts should not arbitrarily separate their lives from that they order. And you see, of the best, and those who don't believe these particular paths, of the best political leaders of all times, these were leaders that just didn't, go off to war, do this, and I'll sit in my protected thing and not have to deal with the consequences. You guys deal with the consequences. No. They weren't like this. They went out to battle. Well, they only approved wars of self-defense. They didn't approve wars of mere conquering or converting or gathering slaves or anything like that, and that's part of why. But they went out to battle just like everybody. Well, not anybody else. This is really rare. Real position is not by birth, but by actions. God will let us make the choices we want towards or away from Him. And just like people criticizing religion, religion is a relationship. If you're going to have a bad relationship, it's not because relationships exist. If relationships didn't exist, things would, I don't know how that would work. But, A moment liberates. You know, that moment where you accept, where you say the creed and you mean it, and you know what it means, but a life conditions further salvation, and of course development and achievement and all that. Death is the ultimate realization, but we need to develop constant spiritual attachment and awareness. Okay, I jumped the gun there. Sorry there, but the conditions start on page 68. So, in the supplementary Vedic literature, there's the following list of 32 offenses in the matter of serving the Lord. One should not enter the temple of the deity in a car or palanquin or with shoes on the feet. Kind of disagree with that, but when possible, keeping the place clean and that sort of thing as a requirement. Universal requirement, certain communities, yes, but universal requirement, I don't believe that. One should not fail to observe the various festivals for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such as Janmashtami, Radha Yatra, etc. Now, if it's actually the real holidays, not conservative holidays, not national holidays, yes, I agree. What you believe those holidays to be. Now, by that I mean, you know, like a simple prayer or attending a prayer service or something like this. I don't mean the sort of spending we get with the number one holiday, Christmas, as far as this country goes, then Halloween, then Easter, and it's like a lot of gluttony, and that's just not what the holidays are about. And going into debt, I mean, if you have to sin to celebrate your holiday, you're not, you know. One should not avoid bowing down before the deity. And again, if you're in a condition where it's not, where it's harmful to you, that's one thing. But the honoring position, or even the submission position of prostrating. One should not enter the temple to worship the Lord without having washed his hands and feet after eating. Well, going to the bathroom too, but yeah, very important. Now, not as required as, you know, rinsing out the mouth or brushing the teeth. That's a good thing to practice. That's probably a better thing nowadays. One should not enter the temple in a contaminated state. Okay, yeah, that's dirty. For example, if the family is Brahmana, contamination period 12 days. Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, it's 15 days. And for Sudras, it's 30 days. I don't know, contaminated period. Hopefully it's not menstruation or something. Keep away, not dirty, but keep away. Wash up after having sex or something, and you'll be fine. One should not bow down on one hand. One should not circumambulate in front of Shri Krishna. Well, the process is circumambulating the temple, the right side, and then come around. Okay, the counterclockwise circumambulations. But one's always in the presence of God. But one should not spread his legs before the deity. Sitting in respectful you're always before God, but respectful postures, particularly ones in public, have more restriction than ones in private. One should not sit before the deity holding the ankles, elbows, or knees with his hands. I don't know why this would be, but maybe at some point it was. One should not lie down before the deity of Krishna. Now, lying down at a place of worship when it's not safe or something, but when it is, or when you need to, it's like, oh, go home. It's like, isn't it better that I attend the next prayer or service, or that I listen to the talk or something? No, you go home. You not lie down. There's plenty of room. There's like half the building, but no. It's like, you know, ridiculous sorts of things that people have. One should not sit before the deity holding naked. One should not lie down before the deity of Krishna. One should not accept prasadam this is sanctified food before deity. It's like, but of course, by this they mean a statue. It's like, yes, the main prayer room of a temple or something, try to keep it clean and some methods to that, but saying it's an ultimate sin that you can't eat anything in this room or something, it's going too far. One should never speak a lie before a deity. Of course, God's always present, so one should not lie. One should not talk with others before the deity. So in the middle of rituals, the talking is down. It's like people be answering phones during prayer service, ask each other questions. Fine, if I make a mistake or whoever's leading makes a mistake, look at that and say, okay, if you know what it says, if you know how to correct it, just correct it and move on. But conversations in the middle of services is not good. One should not cry or howl before the deity. One should not quarrel or fight before deity. Needless crying or howling is kind of not good anyways. One should not, page 69 and number 17, one should not chastise anyone before deity. One should not be charitable to beggars before deity. Again, okay, the house of worship is not a place of business. If people want to donate books or other material that's appropriate to use here or to give away here in terms of that, but people being paid, yeah, that's, and people should maybe ask outside instead of serving Tayam. But if it's needed, I don't know about outside. One should not speak very harshly to others before deity. One should not wear a fur blanket before the deity. If it's cold, come on. People wear these thin clothes and then they drape blankets and afghans and over themselves and stuff like this when it's winter and stuff. That's perfectly fine. One should not eulogize or praise anyone before the deity. Of course, before in terms of greater than or anything like that. But the houses of worship are not to be churches. So no hero shrine. We're not here to eulogize anyone like that. I may have things of remembrance in regard to certain individuals or something, but it's not to praise them instead of God. One should not speak any ill names before deity. One should not pass air before deity. One should not fail to worship the deity according to his means. And of course, the Bhagavad Gita mentions some things about, even if you can pick up a leaf along the way or sprinkle a little water. So whatever your means. One should not eat anything which is not first offered to Krishna. Now, the God of Light. And this prostration to the God of Light was the English translation. Place of prostrations to the God of Light was the English translations of the place at the beginning of my sacred places list, which I would attend more than once a day for 17 years, including their previous location. But everything worth doing is to be done in the name of God, so everything you eat is dedicated to God. One should not fail to offer fresh fruits and grains according to the season. And eat the local food, eat the food of the time. Not only is it better for you, but it's better for the environment. After cooking, no one should be offered any foodstuffs unless it is first offered to deity. So don't even wait to eat. Dedicate your processes. One should not sit with his back towards deity. Now, facing your direction of worship, but I'm doing this presentation as if I'm giving the sermon to people in here, and I'm sure there's some being in here listening to me. One should not offer obeisances silently to the spiritual master. In other words, one should recite aloud prayers to the spiritual master while offering obeisances. Now, I wouldn't say it's good to thank people to their face, or offer blessings on their behalf in their presence. I'm saying you can't say it silently, but definitely don't worship somebody like that. One should not fail to offer some praise in the presence of the spiritual master. Oh, okay, I jumped the gun with my comment. One should not praise himself before spiritual master. One should not deride the demigods before the spiritual master. And the angels and all the other spiritual beings that are not of this world, but may interlap with this world, and the physical things that people worship are that regard, but I wouldn't use the word demigod. And he said 64 offenses in the Nectar Devotion. So let's see with these. The Varaha Purana mentions that one should not touch deity in a dark room. Fine, worship in a dark room, but worshipping in light, with the light on, probably better, particularly if one's reading or one might get hurt at some point. It's a good principle to follow. I got a lot of glow-in-the-dark here. I'll display more glow-in-the-dark in the future. One should not fail to strictly follow the rules and regulations in worshipping the deity. The best acts of worship are the prescribed ones, of course. One should not enter the temple of deity without first making some sound. And the sound should either be you're worshipping or you're greeting the people there. Don't interrupt the services to do that. One should not offer any foodstuff to deity, which has been seen by dogs or other lowly animals. In the so-called Zoroastrian tradition, you get a corpse, a dog with a couple of spots, you know. Or maybe he doesn't have a couple of spots, but you have the dog look at the dead body. Really weird stuff, but this is the other side of the extremes, is that animals are innocent. Now, some animals are unclean animals, and you have them outside, or you don't eat them, and you wash your hands after touching them and that sort of thing. But saying they can't even look at stuff is ridiculous. One should not break the silence while worshiping. Now, in terms of the positions of silence or the act of silence, that's the 8th and secret technique to my 7-fold magical techniques. And you don't break. If it's silent and people are doing their own thing, and it's that type of ritual, yeah, one should not interrupt others by being out loud. One should not pass urine or evacuate while engaging in worshiping. Now, yeah, definitely, one goes in the bathroom and gets that done doesn't delay getting that done and leaves, but chanting in the bathroom over the toilet and stuff like this is, unless you're a Satanist or some other path, that's, Anton Casander LaVey actually talked about some guy who had his bathroom and his kitchen and stuff all together, and it was like, no way. On to page 70. One should not offer an incense without offering some flour. Now, you got sight and smell together and doing that, and that may be more appeasing, but it shouldn't be necessary. Useless flowers without any fragrance should not be offered. Again, I disagree with that. A scent or medicinal use is not necessary for something to be goodly. One should not fail to wash his teeth very carefully every day. One should not enter the temple directly after sexual intercourse. You should try to clean up, or if there's not water, at least tap the brush off and tap the dirt. Or one should not touch a woman during her menstrual period. Now, one should not go into that area, but there's actual plants that don't grow as well or grow differently, and animals that respond differently to that sort of thing. But in general, that's going too far. One should not enter the temple after touching a dead body. Again, another thing that you wash your hands off. Go into the bathroom, you may get ablutions and clean up that part, but if you touch something dirty, then you could just, clean up the hands or whatever. One should not enter the temple wearing garments of red or blue color, or which are unwashed. Again, if you can have clean clothes, you come in clean clothes. One should not enter the temple after seeing a dead body. Again, going way too far, you seeing something. One should not pass air within the temple. There's cases in Africa and Asia where you hear of, this service was ruined. This is the year that this guy, even naming the year after some guy had bad gas and couldn't leave quick enough to, or didn't know it was coming. And it's like, you know, John Calvin had a guy beaten because he was caught passing gas in church, and it's like, again, going way too far with that sort of thing. One should not be angry within the temple. One should control one's emotions, but something of every emotion should be acceptable in a house of worship. One should not enter the temple after visiting a crematorium, or mortuary or something like that too, I would suppose. But no, that's again going too far, but there may be safeguards that one should go through. One should not belch before deity. The Catholic process of waiting an hour before going to Mass, that's a good one to follow. But skipping a service because you haven't waited after eating, no. You should work on eating to avoid burping and stuff so much, but anyways. One should not smoke marijuana or ganja. One should not take opium or similar intoxicants. Well, tobacco too, I would suppose, number 19. Number 21, one should not enter the deity room or touch the body of a deity after smeared oil all over his body. Yeah, so being careful of scriptures in the houses of worship and stuff, and if you're covered in massage oil or whatever, and yeah, one should be careful about that sort of thing, either out of respect or damage issues. One should not show disrespect to a scripture teaching about the supremacy of the Lord. Now, you know, only one scripture in 10 dialects, 84 modes, maybe, hasn't been edited and such like this, and is full, and you know. But there's good things in all scriptures, even made-up New Age scriptures. They can't be completely all bad. So one should respect them. Whether it's a scripture or grimoire or whatever, spiritual texts should be respected, whatever they are. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to promulgate them. You don't have to... One should not introduce any opposing scripture. One should not chew betel before the deity. Plant they would chew on. I think it's really bad for the teeth, but anyways. One should not... it could stain the floor. That could be it too. One should not... again, a deity is not a statue, but a lot of people think it's the statue. One should not alter a flower which has been kept in an unclean pot. Yeah, a good thing kept dirty, it's like a jewel. A lot of people wouldn't... if you get a jewel dirty enough, people wouldn't know its value. They think it's a piece of filth. One should not worship the Lord while sitting on bare feet. One must have a sitting place or a carpet on a bare floor. Bare floors are fine, but some people actually prefer that. They say, "Oh, you can't pray on do at least the obligations. You can't do them on carpet. You have to, unless you have some sort of stone or some piece of earth or something present." I disagree with that one, and I disagree with the opposite. One should not touch deity before as in completing bath. The spiritual concepts touched upon by the pure. So your physical and psychological purity is important to a spiritual approach. But, you know, these are rules for statues, and we don't need statues. Oh, taking a full bath. Yeah, just minor ablutions when a full bath is needed is not enough. One should not decorate his forehead with the three-lined tilaka. Well, people would put, lines on their head or dots and sort of things, which is fine to do in certain circumstances and certain dedications and whatnot, but I guess in others it wouldn't be. One should not enter the temple without washing his hands and feet. And other things may be, don't lie about your rank. Okay, there's more than 64 here, but he could mean to condense them. Here's another 10. The offenses of chanting the holy name. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord. Now, yeah, don't curse devotee. You may disapprove of things that are wrong with people. It's like, fine, correct me. Or any other spiritual preacher or whatever, but bringing offense is not. To consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu, sometimes atheist classes. I'm going to skip all that. But just like in the Egyptian literature, I have a shelf of that's kind of, over there. But, or, well, maybe it's not all over there. Some of it's other places. But, there's a difference between the personifications and the actual divinities, and some people split them up, but it can be definitely one God. And to disobey the orders of a spiritual master. Now, obey God, obey the messenger, and obey, the messenger prophet, and obey those in authority over you. Oh, and those in authority over you. The obedience is conditional upon the revelation and inspiration. You just don't obey everything that's attributed to a conservative tradition's founder or teacher or disciplic succession. You look at that. So, again, or sometimes the authority of he or she only goes so far. To blaspheme the Vedic literature, or the literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. So primary and secondary literature, whether it's been corrupted or not, of the spiritual nature, the sapiential and the sciential tradition of the religion of the world. Yes, don't blaspheme it, because there's still something remaining in there of the truth. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 8 on to page 72. To consider the chanting of, well, whatever chant, as one of the auspicious ritual activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities. Karma kanda. So, again, the prescribed things that go beyond the experience or the development, the devotion is the highest. To instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name. So, more important, that's going too far, but most important is to instow the truth, the right beliefs, not just, encourage the action. Oh, just, washing up or laying on your right side, or whatever practice that is taught in the spiritual tradition to somebody. It loses, it's that can be good, but the main thing is to have the right beliefs and consciousness and try to, and number 10, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names, and to maintain attachments even after understanding so many understandings on the matter. So, every devotee that claims to be a server of the must guard against that or whatever actual offenses of their age and place. But, you have the potency, the lights and the sound, and there's other meanings that can be, you know, the omnipresent, omniscient, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, yeah. Hari, Krishna, you know, the light, all attractive. Rama, sound, what else is that? But anyways, you don't have, if you're visualizing some weird hairy yellow thing, like, I don't know, some cartoon version of part of my beard flying around or something, and some guy, some 15-year-olds with their shirts off, one guy in red, another one with yellow pants, that's, you probably shouldn't say this chant, but if you remember, use it to remember the presence and the power and the knowledge of God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Or by whatever tone you wish, but now if you strip it of the fanaticism and the sophism and the priestcraft and all that, you can pretty much turn to any spiritual source and be guided.